O-O-T-C. Hey, that's cool.
You got a podcast?
Well, I didn't know that.
That's cool.
Now you do.
Welcome. We are back. That's cool. OTC's very own podcast, all about all the fantastic people we work with a brand new episode for 2022.
Oh, I can't wait.
Beginning the spring semester. I am Jared Durden, and with me as always
is Andrew Crocker, and sir, it feels like that winter break was like 2 years long to me. How about yourself?
Yes, and it.
Why?
That's how it should feel, right? Like, it's taken me years, but I'm really working on just completely shutting down during break. Right?
Did you feel like you did that?
Yes, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of work to do, but and I don't mean completely shut down as in I don't exist. I mean like doing things while not doing anything that's taxing, right? Like, because it's really just kind of disconnecting myself from work and really getting some relaxation in and kind of doing things that help me kind of reset and recharge.
And you feel like that slows your breakdown some, huh? Like
I think it does.
Mine is for a different reason. I got a 6 and a 4-year-old at home, and so after a week, my cup is full. Yeah. It runneth over, not always in the best ways, between that second week and the beginning of the semester. So we're charged up. We're just, and am I wrong, Mr. Durden? I'm seeing a little bit of a new do for you, a little bit more swoopy action up top. Am I wrong?
I'm growing it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How far are we going?
Well, if I'm honest,
is this a New Year's resolution? What are you doing here?
Did you watch the Get Back documentary?
I did.
So I was watching that, and Carly a little too much mentioned how cute she thought Paul McCartney looked. And so somehow I got that in my head. I guess I need to grow my hair out a little.
It looks great right now, but you're in the middle. You're not at your goal yet. You're on the way there. Every time I try anything different, by the time my hair is halfway in no man's land, halfway where it needs to go, it just looks like a complete discombobulated mess. I don't know how you and your ilk get away with having good-looking hair when you're in the middle of your game plan.
I got some advice.
So irritating.
I got some advice. So I went to Blue Sky.
Yeah.
The person doing my hair, blow drying, that's apparently the key. And I'm in no way an expert, and never was. Really, I'm just kind of a run my fingers through it. But apparently, it takes some training.
Okay.
All right. I've been trying.
This is good. Our listeners do come to us for hair tips. So
why not?
Let's start off 2022 on a strong note there with good hair tips.
We need to reach out to us. So we need to bring someone on with to talk about hair.
Somebody listening must know something about hair.
More than us,
for sure. Yeah. No question.
But thank you for noticing.
You look dapper. You look great.
You look great yourself.
Thank you.
We don't compliment each other enough.
Well, it's odd for men to compliment each other, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. The other day, I had a friend of mine text me that he loved me, and then he texted me later. Sorry, that was from my wife, and I texted him back. But I do love you. And it was, even though I was trying to be empathetic and I try to be open-minded, it does feel strange to tell another non-family member man that you love him. It shouldn't.
Yeah.
But it does. And it feels weird to tell another man that he looks great. Jared, I like you and I like the way you look.
That was a kind of a drop down from I love you.
I don't feel like we've established a relationship enough yet for me to tell you I love you. Yeah.
That's fair. But
I love the way you are.
There's been a lot of talk about that lately in terms of mental health, and especially with the way men in our culture talk about their emotions or the lack of talking about it. So here's another. Let's start this new year right.
Yes,
and you know what? We're taking care of ourselves. We're taking care of each other.
Can we make that kind of a running theme this year? Is a little bit of like self-care, not just for men, but I mean that's clearly the perspective you and I are coming from here. Yeah. But self-care, mental health, I think we should make a little sub theme.
Let's do it, right? We had that great episode with Jeff Johnson and talking about compassion. And,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and hey, book him. Book him 2 or 3 more times for all I'm concerned about, because I had a great time with him.
Or did I say that right? Jeff
Jones.
Jeff Jones.
Yeah. Might have said Jeff Johnson. We've had both the Jeffs.
Johnson. So today, though, speaking of self-care, this might be we brought on kind of someone to talk about a hobby more than a discipline, but something that both of us have had experience in.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we were kind of excited about a very special guest today with us from the Bioclinical Sciences Department, instructor Dick Wells. How you doing, Dick?
Oh, pretty good. Hey, thank you for having me.
Welcome aboard.
it.
And you do truly feel like kind of the mission statement that Jared and I have been going for here, reaching out to people we normally don't run.
Right.
There's no reason why you and I would ever cross paths, really, in the normal.
No.
And so it's great that we get to bring you in here as a flimsy pretext to get to know you a little bit and to talk about something we all care about. How you doing?
Oh, I'm very good. About yourself?
I'm doing. Do you feel refreshed, ready to go? How was your break?
Much like you, I have 2 young ones at the house. So again, as we were getting closer, I was quite ready to come back. I love my children dearly, but like you mentioned, the cup fills quite quickly.
It's one of the crazy things about raising kids that young too is how fast the pendulum swings.
Oh, yes.
My kids yesterday they're just tired because they're still getting used to school themselves. It's just tired, and they were just demons. And then you put them down. You put them down at 8 p.m.
Right.
And as they're laying in bed and they're drifting off there, it's so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And you go from wanting to punt them into the sun
right.
straight to like your heart grows 3 sizes.
100%.
And I mean, that happens in 2 seconds.
Yeah. For us, it's one of those deals you're watching them sleep and you're like, we should have another one. And then they wake up in the morning and you're like, we're good. It's all good.
My wife pushed me off the fence a little bit for the second one. How many do you have?
2. Yep.
Do you agree with my assessment that, by the way, what's the age differential?
So my son is 7 and my daughter just turned 5. So they're 2 years apart.
Okay, it's about where I am.
Yeah.
So, and one thing I noticed is that having a kid doesn't really change your life that much.
No.
You can do 95% of the things you were doing before with a kid. Once you got 2, though, the logistics completely changes.
Completely changed. Like I told her, I said, I don't want to see a day where they outnumber us. Like, then total chaos ensues.
So this is 100% true. My wife works at the hospital, and when she was pregnant the second time, she ran like I don't know what it wasn't quite an ultrasound, but it was kind of like an ultrasound. Anyways, she saw 2 heartbeats, and she came home and she was like, I may have just seen 2 heartbeats, and I was happy, but I was like 65% happy and 35% mad because I was like, I did not sign up for 3. Turns out one of them was like a fluid sac that was reading her pulse.
Dodge that bullet, right?
I was like,
And that's the thing, like my luck, if we were to try for another, I'd end up with like 7 kids.
Yeah.
By the time we're done.
Absolutely,
like, oh no. But again, they are great. They are worthwhile, but they are a handful. And again, space-wise, logistics, like you mentioned, like the world changes as you gain more and more children. It really does.
The thing that reminded me how aggressively that pendulum swings was on the snow day. There was a snowy day. And first of all, it was like 3 days back from school. So you're like, they're gone. Mm-hmm. And then on the 4th day, it's canceled. You're like, oh, here I go. Right back into the soup. And it takes you 20 minutes to get them out the door because of all the snow stuff. They play in the snow for 10 minutes, which is heavenly. You have such a great time with them, but then they're freezing and they turn on you in a hurry. They're like, I got to go in like now. And then you take them in. It takes you another 10 minutes to get. But anyways, they are, obviously we completely agree they're amazing gifts. Our lives are better because of them, but man. They test parts of you that you didn't know existed.
100%. Yeah, like you mentioned there, my daughter, that snow, and she hasn't seen a whole lot of snow or any major snow in her life. So whenever we got even a little bit, she was like, we got to go outside. Like first thing in the morning, we got to go outside. And I'm like, let's wait for it to warm up a little bit. And we spent probably 15 minutes getting her ready. She made it 5 minutes. She came right back in. She's like,
that's it.
I'm done. Like, and then 15 minutes to get her de-gowned essentially from all her winter equipment. And
like I chilled out for the rest of the day. I was like, I feel like I ran a marathon.
Exactly.
I swam laps basically, just doing a routine trip to the yard and back.
Right. So yeah, they make everything a little more work, but it's in the end worth it. We got some good pictures that we can look back on and be like, hey, this was a great day. and at the time, maybe not so great, but at least the pictures make you remember it as great.
You ready to dive into the semester? Dive into how are you feeling at this point?
I'm feeling pretty good. I've been doing this long enough now that the routine is pretty set. It's one of those things that you kind of come in, check the boxes, and overall it goes pretty quickly. And I'm happy where I'm at with my class. Again, I spent a lot of time trying to get it set up in a way that I can roll it out like this. And so it's one of those things that once it gets rolling, it's going to flow nicely. So I literally just have to link up some of the pages to the McGraw-Hill assignments that I had plugged into the class now. So I just have a few links to put together, and I'll be good.
So tell us a little bit more about your relationship to the college, what you do in the BCS department.
Yeah. So I've worked at OTC since probably 2011. I was actually a student here first. So I was a student here in like 2007.
What was your graduating year, 2007?
So, no. So, all right. Full disclosure, I graduated high school in 2005. Went to Missouri State with the intent of being a medical doctor. Maybe indulged in college life a little more than I probably should have. But I had done A+, so I was like, well, this is a great opportunity. I can go to OTC and kind of figure out what I want to do, really. And so I came to OTC, a little disgruntled at that point. Sorry, Dana Sherman. And so I had her as an instructor.
Oh, the best.
Yeah,
Dana Sherman, the best.
And so I made her life a little rough because I was broody and pouty. But anyway, so I had actually taken microbiology here. It was one of the only biology classes I could take. And so I fell in love with it. I immediately knew this is what I wanted to do, and so I went back to Missouri State and focused on microbiology. Problem was I'd taken some classes there and some here, so I had to basically pick up more hours over there. So I ended up double majoring in biology and psychology. So again, at that time, I had the intent of going into research, and so I did some undergrad research, and it was a good experience. I enjoyed it, but I also quickly realized it's not what I wanted to do. And so one of the things that kind of happened was they said, hey, if you teach for us, we will pay for your master's. And I'm like, oh, all right, I'm cheap as heck, so let's do this. And so I started teaching, and I fell in love with it. And so I came out of I think it was 2012, I started teaching over here some. And so I initially started teaching in the biology department with Dr. Joyce Hill. And I told her that I did microbiology, and she's like, go see Mary Crocker.
Yeah.
And so I went and talked with Mary Ann, and she's like, we'll get you in. And so I taught adjunct down at Richwood Valley for quite a while. And then whenever Mary Ann retired, I kind of came in and took over a good chunk of the microbiology classes. So I got hired full-time, I should know this, probably right around 2014. So I've been full-time since then, and it's been a great experience. I teach the good majority of the microbiology classes here. I've done some other things in BCS, some anatomies and such, but micro is truly my thing.
How much you crisscrossing with virology, epidemiology, stuff that would be relevant to the pandemic that has ensnared us all?
A lot. I took every micro-related course I possibly could, with the exception of virology there. That one, I had to go to a different department to do, and at the time, I actually opted to take a unique biology psych combination course that was offered by Dr. Haywood over there at MSU, and it was basically like evolution and human psychology combined, and so I opted for that to kind of check that out. But yeah, I've done quite a bit in the realm of virology and epidemiology in the end. So, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a little rough right now for someone who can understand kind of the situation that we're in and how it keeps kind of persisting. And again, I'm excited for the future, but to still feel like we're still in the middle of something like this right now is a little rough. So again, I keep saying it and I'll say it again. SARS-CoV-2, which is coronavirus, fits in a real weird place where it hurts just enough people that it's something we really need to pay attention to, but not so much that everybody pays attention. There's enough people that know other people that came out fine with no issues that they could always point to those people and be like, hey, look, this dude's fine. He smokes 6 packs a day and he's great. But then you get someone, unfortunately, that catches a bad run and they get pneumonia, and next thing you know, they're on a ventilator and pass on. And it's a real weird one.
There's no greater disconnect, I don't think, in our society than the alarm with which hospitals are completely gassed.
Yes, 100%.
With the complacency that the rest of us are operating under, relevant to the I mean, I to a certain extent, I wonder why those folks don't speak up more. And, I'm married to one of them, but I don't understand why folks in that world don't speak up more. We simply are acting as if that complete exhaustion of healthcare resources isn't happening.
Yeah. My wife is also in healthcare, and so, I see it firsthand as well. Just the sheer amount of people. And some people think it's like everything else medically related stopped. But the reality is there's still as many people having heart attacks or strokes or, again, breaking limbs or need emergency surgery. And so you throw on top of that all this COVID stuff, and it destroys the system. The system's not built to handle that kind of burden. And so even a small number becomes a big impact.
And what's kind of crazy is you and I are absorbing it. The rest of us are absorbing it as waves. But in hospitals, it has been a 2-year wave. It has never subsided for them. It has never subsided for them.
I think something else confusing too is there's this narrative that kind of highlights this really small percentage of healthcare workers that argue kind of a different point, that speak against vaccination, that speak against the problem, and that can muddy the waters and where you're both in relationships with people that are closely tied to the hospital that are telling you something very different.
Right.
There's just so many opinions that are seemingly held at the same position,
right?
And are so accessible, right? We can all just publish whatever we want at any time.
Yeah, and our scientific illiteracy, is really getting exposed right now. It is. And you know who I feel the worst for, even though, I mean, I don't know how at risk you would consider them relative to us, but it's our kids, right? It's our kids. They're the ones paying the price.
They are.
They're the ones who, I mean, I held my kids out for an entire year before just pure resource exhaustion. I have no choice. They're going to school.
Right.
And they're the ones paying the price for it.
And it sucks. Again, it's almost like time was robbed from them, but this time
that is a great way of saying it.
It's so crucial in their development. Again, my son started kindergarten at the time of the pandemic, I love my son, but he needs that social interaction, and so we were very much weighing that. Do we keep him at the house and try to teach from home, or do we put him in? And it's like he needs social interaction more than anything, so we kind of got to put him in. So again, trying to encourage him to be as safe as possible in a school that didn't necessarily back us up on it was kind of is rough, and I felt like he did get robbed in some of his education there because of it. So I don't know. I'm hopeful again that things are close to changing, but it really is. Being an adult in this time frame, it's rough, but being a child who's depending on going to things like schools and going to events with friends and going to the fun places, they're getting robbed of a lot of that in many cases, and it sucks. So
it'll get better, right?
It will.
It'll get better.
It will all get better, and that's the reality. Immunity, whether achieved through vaccination or herd through natural exposure, it will happen. The question is how many people have to suffer major consequences in terms of their health. We lose along the way, right? So how many people have, whether they pass or whether they have lifelong debilitating illness. There are many folks that, even though they lived, the scar tissue building up in their lungs and the issues like that are permanent, right? That this stuff is not going to get better for them. And so again, it's not just the number of people that have passed, it's also the amount of people that are now permanently dealing with issues that came about from this illness. And I really hope that people are starting to see it as it continues to move through our population, that, you know, it's a serious deal. Again, you can't just point at the numbers of those that survive versus those that pass. It's affected everybody in lots of ways. And I'm hopeful that we will move forward. I mean, if we survived the Spanish flu in the past, we'll make, you know, the plagues of the past, right? Like, we'll make it through this. It's just how many people we lose or injure along the way. That's the concern. So
I want to lighten things up a little.
Yeah, well, we said that we were going to make the sub-theme mental health.
Well, a part of mental health is really, you know, confronting the issues that there are and talking about them. So we're not doing anything wrong. But we were talking about kind of your role as a student and then an instructor, and you've kind of taken a student role again. I wanted to mention and have you just tell us a little bit about recently in the last semester, you've taken advantage of one of the great programs that are offered to faculty and staff here. You took a course outside of your field. Tell us a little bit about what you've done.
Yeah, so going through the issues with moving stuff online and already doing some stuff online, I realized that there were some areas I can improve my course. And so I sat down and I'm like, what things can I do better? And I was like, you know what? I want to learn more about film and again, electronic media production to up the quality of my course. And so I went and I took EMP 102 with Mr. Spear, and again, had a wonderful time. It was a great experience. I'm very happy I did it because it's something I've always been interested in, but never allowed myself to do. I focused hard on the sciences throughout my college career. And so this was a cool opportunity of something I liked, but also something that was applicable to what I do. So I was real excited to get in there, and I learned a heck of a lot. It is very odd to be sitting in a classroom with another person as an instructor and be surrounded by, and that class was almost exclusively like high schoolers. So that was real interesting. But I was able to you know, interact with the fellow students, and we had to group up for projects and stuff. So it went really well. I was actually pretty impressed.
Does your teacher brain switch off? Are you finding yourself critiquing? Or you, like,
sorry, Mr. Spear, but there was some minor critiquing. Everything's different. That's the one thing I figured out early in that class was everybody has a different style, and it still worked, right? Like where I'm like, I would like a little more structure. Even though it wasn't as structured, it still worked. You know, we still had people learning and working well together, and you know, there was still the control in the classroom that kept it an effective learning environment. So again, there's lots of ways to do this. I'm so used to the way I do things that I kind of forget that people have other ways of doing stuff, and it can still work.
But you know, the best way to lecture, the best way to teach is to merge your teaching style with your personality style. Right. And, you know, political science has had a brand new instructor full-time added in Kara Griffin, good friend of mine. And there's lots of ways that you can teach a class this way or that way. Maybe there's some piece of advice I can give her, but her personality is so different from mine that I just don't know how useful my advice is sometimes. Make sure to do this or that in the room. She may do, and she does, do completely different things. She does a great job. It's just you have to merge it with your personality style.
100%. And I think it's hard for some instructors early on is to figure out what their style is going to be, because whenever you first get in, you kind of emulate those that you've been around. And so really trying to find and own what you do is a big part of the early time in teaching.
Oh, and my style is completely different than when I started.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I went in a lot more rigid early on. I was coming from MSU and an expectation of everybody, like, you're here to learn. But then I started to look around, I'm like, people got a lot going on, so maybe I can be a little more flexible. Maybe I can help offer different ways to engage with the material. Maybe I'll record some narration on some PowerPoints that I can post up for them for later. You know, hey, your kid's sick, go take them to the doctor, because that's what you should do. but listen to this narrated PowerPoint so that you can stay up with the class, and email me your questions and things like that. And I think that kind of flexibility, although it took a little time to see, was very, very important in helping develop a functional class for me. So,
silly question. Would you recommend instructors take another class here at OTC?
Yes, I really would. It's a great opportunity, and I would encourage people to try stuff outside of their wheelhouse. Get out there and see what else is out there. I mean, I took this class, the CMP class. I'm going to continue down that path, but I'm already looking at, what am I going to get into next? Maybe I take some graphic design stuff, or honestly, maybe I try some other tech area that I've been interested in, like electrical or something, and kind of just see what else is out there. I have knowledge, little bits of knowledge in all these other areas, but this is a great chance to kind of expand some of that knowledge and make yourself more well-rounded.
Jared, what are you taking? You get a chance to take a class. What are you taking?
I want to get certified in welding.
Welding?
I plan on doing that, actually. I've had
Are there
that
areas
plan
of your
for a
life?
while. I mean, I'm always building and working on things, and that's like my hobby, and in general is crafting, I guess, or. But I've had a lot of experiences where I build interactive science displays, and I have to outsource that stuff. So I think it would be cool. And the older I get, the more I get into farming and homesteading, and so then that stuff comes up naturally.
Oh yeah.
I got a crazy idea though for you. I think it would be interesting to look at a professional development where you put together a cohort of instructors from different parts of the college that take a course in a different part of the college together and talk about teaching.
That's interesting.
It's one of those things. Boy, that's a big time.
Yeah,
straight in dedication, but. Like, what an interesting way to start out teaching.
First of all, we ended up crossing paths through a cohort. I think if you could involve cohorts more often. Yeah. Am I saying that right? Cohort?
Cohort. Yeah.
I do advising for some of my students. I'm sure we all do. But some of the advising I've done, they need to find electives. And it's always in the electives where I'm like, maybe that's a course I should take when I get some time. Yeah. Like you could take a guitar class online. Not you know how to play, but myself, I would love to know how to play an acoustic guitar. Well, there's a class you can take here at OTC to learn how to play guitar.
Completely online?
I think it was an online class that I saw. Cool. Yeah. So, you got any more plans to take a guitar class with me? Let's take a guitar class.
Yeah, I'd be down. Yeah. This is a weird deal. Back whenever Guitar Hero started, I picked up some guitars. Yeah. I took some classes and kind of dropped out because I entered the later years of my college and graduate work, and so I would love to pick that back up and actually get back into it. And so I got 3 guitars just laying around at home I'd love to actually have some use with. So.
I played Guitar Hero once when it came out for like 2 or 3 hours straight.
Yeah.
And on my left hand, my pinky and ring finger all the way down my arm to my elbow was numb for like 2 years. I had to get chiropractic work done. I don't know what I did, but I stopped playing Guitar Hero.
The guitar was real awkward. It was like a condensed version, so you're holding it in a way that was rather unnatural. And I think
maybe you were overexerting when you didn't need to. It's like growing up, my dad would play Nintendo with me. He would like mash the keys. He was like, if I hit the key harder, it'll make Mario run faster.
I am so competitive too that I know I take things way too far. So something we like to ask our guests to get to know them. Tell us someone that you look up to, an inspiration, possibly a hero of yours that you'd like to share with our listeners that they may or may not know about.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And actually, I'm going to pay a little tribute to my uncle here. So growing up, I went to a smaller, more rural school. I say smaller, it was actually pretty good size compared to most, but it was definitely more rural and more kind of classical and a lot of the kind of peer group scenarios. And so trying to fit in there was always interesting. But I had my uncle Dennis, was a very unique, wonderful man. And he was what you'd call like a nerd rocker guy. He wore the denim jacket, had the long hair, listened to Slayer, but played D&D and, read comic books and all those fun things. And so he introduced me to a lot of that kind of stuff. whenever I was younger, and kind of brought me into the fold of that kind of stuff. And I wish I would have done more, and getting in there with him and playing with him before he passed. And so, part of this is in tribute to him now, because again, losing him was kind of rough. So, but yeah, so again, wonderful man that kind of showed me the other side, because I was working hard to be in that group of people that was popular, and I was always into athletics and stuff, and so, but that naturally flowed with the pop. Not a lot of dudes in their leather jackets going and playing D&D at that time in particular, right? So, he kept me kind of grounded in other areas and showed me other things, which was real cool. So I definitely owe a lot of who I am today to him. So
I really appreciate the fact that your personal hero is not somebody that helped you achieve career-wise,
right,
or get a leg up in whatever industry you may find yourself. There is, for the record, I have no issue with people having those kinds of heroes.
Right.
I do appreciate yourself holding up somebody who helped you just realize a fuller part of yourself,
right,
and to give you a more satisfying, it is a very satisfying hobby, very fun hobby. That's what we're in this for.
Oh.
That's why we work our jobs, is that we do what we do so that we can do what we like. And I do enjoy that was somebody who inspired you in that regard.
Yeah, and that's, I was always well driven in terms of academics, for the most part. And I kind of had an idea that I wanted to go into science. So again, I would have got there. I have no doubt that I would have got, but having this other part introduced to me, and if we're going to be honest, I'm rather eclectic in my interests. I have a hot rod pickup that's in my barn. I've welded. I play games and tabletop, and I know how to paint a vehicle. Like, I'm quite versed in a lot of things, and it's because of those people around me. Like, they're my hobby things that I kind of knew I would want to keep. And some great advice from my father, because I got way into like the building vehicles and welding and all that stuff, and I was like, I want to do that for a career. He's like, do you want to go in and do that every day, or are you saying it because you enjoy it right now? And I was like, well, I enjoy it right now. He's like, but a lot of times whenever you find a job becomes a job. Even if something you like, eventually there is some fatigue, and you may not want to do it as often then, right? And so he's like, maybe keep it as a hobby. Find a job that, you can enjoy, but still have the hobbies. Have it be different from the hobbies. And so I did appreciate that advice from my father, where I can still get to do those things fun. And don't get me wrong, I love my job. I love what I do. But there are those days where you're like, man, I don't know. I'm a little stressed. This was a rough day or whatever. And then I can go tinker on the vehicle, or, go build a table or whatever the heck I want to do, right? So,
what's the year and model of your truck?
It's a 1936 Chevy pickup.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was my first vehicle. My parents put me in a hot rod pickup as my first vehicle. So,
does it have a crank in the front? How did you say 1930s?
1936.
No.
And to be fair, it's not currently running. It needs some repair. It had to sit out during graduate school and all that, and some of the body work and stuff needs to be redone. So that's my next kind of step. I got a nice big barn that I need to kind of prepare to do more bodywork stuff in. So I'm real excited for that. That should be coming together in the next year or so I can get into that. This has partly been intentional because my son's starting to get to the age, and how this all kind of started. His dad's like, hey, come out to the shop with me. Look, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to try that or whatever. And so I look forward to doing that with my son and hopefully my daughter as well.
Yeah.
Get them both out there kind of tinkering around and seeing how stuff works, which is great. It's an opportunity to apply yourself in different ways, right? I was always curious about a lot of things, and this fed naturally into that. Like, let's go figure out how that motor works. Let's talk about how, the steps to laying down paint or whatever on a vehicle or whatever. So it was real cool. So again, a very unique upbringing. I had lots of different people and lots of different spheres around me that helped kind of guide me and then help me become who I am. So.
Yeah, automotive work can really feel intimidating when you first look at as a whole.
Yes.
But I've kind of learned and progressed by, as something goes wrong, I just have to focus on that one thing. And there's parts of an engine that just amaze me, the ingenuity and the creativity that went into designing those smaller features. Because once you get down to a small enough level, it's really not that complicated.
No.
The complexity comes in the inner workings of how the systems, cooperate with each other and whatnot.
And I think it's a good way to kind of view the world. And I think it's part of why I love microbiology so much is you look at the smaller parts, but they can make up something much bigger, have a bigger impact.
Oh, sir, so, you need to get into podcasting. That was a killer transition. That's such a smart connection to make, though. That's exactly what microbiology is.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. I've come to learn that everything in this world is connected in varying ways, and how you approach it's how you kind of ultimately get where you're going. So again, I've found ways to take what I've done and what I want to do and kind of meld them together and kind of work on a bigger goal, but doing it in smaller pieces or bits, I think is the best way to approach any of that, right? Like taking this electronic media production class, right? It's something I can use here, but maybe I can transition into something else, right? I really enjoyed the Photoshop part of it, so maybe I can go into some photo editing stuff for the family album later, right? So again, taking the little bits that and using them in unique ways or combining them with things you already know is a cool way to kind of approach things. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy learning overall. And so the more I learn, the more I can kind of tie those things I love together and do other things. So yeah, it's real cool.
So one last question before we talk about our topic today, to get to know you. Gumby versus Mr. Ed, battle to the death. Who wins and why?
Honestly, Gumby, he could take any form or shape. I mean, let's be honest. Gumby's weird. He's wild. He will do some stuff, Not to bring it down, but Mr. Ed's a one-trick pony, right? Like he's got his
almost literally, yes.
Right? Exactly. And so that's the thing. So I think it's Mr. Gumby for sure.
This is actually brought to my attention a couple episodes ago. Was that not only is Gumby formidable in terms of taking damage, because he really can't be. Yeah. You can't put him down.
No, he's clay.
He can phase. That had somehow in my childhood got completely blacked out from my memory. He can go through walls and such.
Oh, he can.
So blocking him up and,
there's no entrapment.
No, there's no entrapment there.
You can't get away.
There was almost a suggestion there in your argument that it had something to do with his moral compass.
Yeah.
the capabilities.
Gumby wouldn't harm. We do have to keep in mind what's their state of mind in this moment, because both these characters are total pacifists. But
for sure,
if they're going in for the kill, Gumby every time.
Gumby.
Yeah.
Yep, I see that.
So we have brought you here today because of all of your experience with Dungeons and Dragons. So we really ultimately our question then is tell us what you know and convince our listeners, if they've never tried this in their life, why they should at least once sit down and play a game of Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, I appreciate you all having me on for this, and I have quite a bit of experience here, but really one of the biggest selling points I could possibly give you for D&D is the creativity aspect of it. As a game, there are rules and restrictions, but there's a lot of openness to it. And I think one of the coolest features, and honestly the reason I really, really love it, is it gives you creative opportunity to solve problems in unique ways. And as you work through the campaign and stuff, you gain more tools or resources that can help you solve problems in other ways. And honestly, the fact that you do all this problem solving and you pair it with usually a group of people, it can lead to wonderful creative experiences that never are likely to ever happen in a person's life. So I'll give a quick reference. I was playing as a player in a game, and we were fighting a big scary monster called a Hydra. And we were working together as a group, but I was a rogue bird person called a Kenku. And I got the final kill shot on this Hydra. And so I decided that I was going to change the story arc or plan I had for this character and suddenly become kind of this like showboat, kind of like wrestler, like Hulk Hogan kind of esque. I'm the Hydra Slayer. So I suddenly became the Hydra Slayer, which then went to me going to my miniature figure that I'd painted and creating a little cape that said Hydra Slayer that was supposedly created out of the skin of the Hydra. And it's that opportunity to be creative and kind of lead a story as a group that really makes D&D very cool and unique, right? They were all very annoyed that I was claiming this victory and that I had taken the steps to even fashion. I even made a T-shirt, for goodness sakes, that says Hydra Slayer.
You leaned way in.
But again, having that affect the group dynamic, because then I was suddenly almost like an anti-hero here, and they're like, hey, watch him, he's going to do something sketchy, or take the. But again, playing a rogue, I thought it was quite fitting, right? So it's cool, the kind of transitions you go through in the story with yourself, but also with the group. That group creative opportunity is really awesome.
Okay, so let's start logistically here, because I'm sad to say there's probably people that aren't nerdy enough to know what we're talking about here.
100%.
You used a phrase earlier in this episode that I had first heard in high school, and I was like, what does that even mean? You called it a tabletop game.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So,
what is the game? What if I'm sitting down? Am I staring at a game board? What am I looking at? What are we doing?
It really depends, and that's the kind of cool part of D&D is there's lots of ways to play. Little background: D&D started as a tabletop strategy game using miniatures. So, and it was like based off of a military strategy. So you'd have basically movement and stuff. But D&D's kind of progressed beyond that as a way to kind of work together in a shared reality, just in your mind, right? So some people don't even actually play with any, miniatures or any really resources other than talking through the scenarios. And so tabletop is a general term for games that would be played across the tabletop, as compared to like video games or other types of game, card games, things like that, right? But again, D&D doesn't necessarily even fit into the category of tabletop solely. Many people do it tabletop because it adds a certain amount of strategy to it. But in general, again, tabletop games can be really anything that you would traditionally lay out across the table.
And Jared and I are honored that you have brought a lot of materials that the three of us are looking at right now. Sadly, this is an audio medium. I would love to although we will have a picture of your visit with us, at least on our Spotify description of this episode. But nonetheless, people shouldn't be intimidated by that.
No.
You actually, if you haven't done it before, you just need to be there. That's all you need. You only really have one person who's required to know what they're doing.
Right.
And that's the person we call the Dungeon Master. Who is this person? What's going on here?
So the Dungeon Master, you may also hear the term GM, which is Game Master. They're going to be the one that kind of leads the narrative. So they themselves are not a player. They're more of the storyteller and the one that can kind of affect the players themselves. So they kind of determine some of the outcomes or even the challenges that are going to be faced. And it is, and I'll be honest, it's an intimidating role, but it's a very rewarding role in that you do get to help create that environment for the players, right? You're the one that's using the creativity of the medium to help kind of set up scenarios and then react to what they get to do. And so they're kind of the leader of the narrative. They are interacting with the players, but they themselves are not actual players.
Have you done any GMing yourself?
Yes, actually quite a bit. I've done more GM or DMing than I actually have as a player. And it is stressful, I will not lie. You go in with these scenarios, these ideas of what you want to see happen, and on the fly, suddenly someone does something super creative or super cool, and you're like, what do I do now? And then so on the fly, you're trying to figure out what the next step is. What's the next logical or sometimes even illogical thing that can happen, right? And so it's a real interesting situation, but it's very rewarding whenever you can leave a session with your players and feel like you've created a fun, enjoyable environment for everybody involved. It's super, super rewarding. So.
And so the DM or GM doesn't have their own single character. However, they're responsible for portraying any of the ancillary characters not played by the game members.
Right, and so we would call
There's
those
a lot of hats you're wearing.
Yeah. So you're being the narrative. You're in control of the narrative, but you're also playing the roles of the non-player characters, which we would call an NPC, right? And so you're playing the barkeep who's explaining the kind of scenario of why we need to go to the dungeon, right? You're explaining or setting up for the next thing as a non-playable character. So again, it's a weird. It's like telling the narrative through other people, which is a weird way to think of it, but you can use them as kind of tools in your tool set to really force a story to, I hate to use the word force. There's this idea that some narratives are forced, but you try to keep it kind of free and light, but try to guide, right? Try to be more of a guide. So you can use these non-playable characters to be a guide, and you as the DM would play them. You're also in control of a lot of the enemies, so you get to make the decisions of what attacks or what environment the events happen in and things like that. So there are lots of parts to this, and overall, like I said before, it's a bit intimidating early on, but once you've learned the systems, it's not too bad. As a player, it's really more reactionary. You get proposed a scenario, and you get freedom to kind of try to decide what you want to do. So.
Let's start at the beginning. So, let's just say that I am brand new to this. I sit down in the chair. What tools do I need to bring to make sure that I'm having the most fun possible?
Yeah, so with D&D, there are a few things that are very commonplace no matter what type of game you're playing. So whether it's one with miniatures or what, you're going to need really some things like typically a player's handbook or some kind of player guide. There are full-on big fancy books called Player's Handbook. That's really thick. I mean, we're talking numerous pages. But in all honesty, you don't really typically need that. You need just the basic rules that can come in things like the D&D starter set that give you just kind of the basic rundown. So in there, though, and why I'm bringing that up, is a player sheet. And one of the things you got to do is decide who you are as a character. Who are you going to be? Are you a wizard, much like Gandalf, that's going to kind of be this elder person leading kind of the group? Or are you going to be some crazy pirate that just absolutely chaotic and just all about it? You know, like Charlie Day hanging out of the back of the van, right?
Wild card.
Exactly. And so that's the thing. Like, you get that kind of freedom as a player, but you kind of got to lay that groundwork down on the player sheet. And usually that's important because you'll pass that player sheet usually to the DM or GM, so they have an idea who the characters are and can kind of help with the narrative around that.
And there's some strategy as a group, too, to work together to have different representation to have the best team.
Yeah, the more diverse the group, the greater options you have to overcome the scenarios or situations, right? And so usually you don't see a lot of people doubling up. You don't usually have like a couple fighter, barbarian types, or no wizard or something. You usually someone tries to take like a magical kind of path. Someone tries to typically take a healer path, which is a very, and I'll be honest, an underserved group. Everybody needs a dang healer, all right? But yeah, so you got things like healers, you got your traditional kind of rogues or even unique rogues, right? So there's opportunity to have all these different members of the group play different roles or even change the roles. Some of the cool features of some of the later D&D stuff was they allowed people to like take these roles and merge them together. So take little stats over here and a little stat over here to maybe make someone like a battle mage or wizard, right? So someone that does magic but also focuses on fighting. And so that's the cool part, is that you can kind of meld some of this, but you got to get it all down on that player sheet so that the DM or GM knows what's going on, right? They have to have that kind of tool.
What what personality tools do I need to be bringing?
In all honesty, one of the best things that you can come to the table with is an open mind. And I'll be honest, sometimes depending on the GM or DM, the game can be frustrating at times. But if you're open to this idea that we're all here together with the shared goal of having fun, it should be a great experience, right? And I will say that's one of the harder things with forming a group is getting the right people, but you never know without sitting down with those people, right? And so you'll find that some people are going to be way into the stats and all the details, while the other person's just they're doing crazy chaotic things for the heck of it, right? And so finding the people but being open-minded in what the goal is as a group is probably one of the best kind of setups there. So there's two things really that attracted to me this when I played in high school and a little bit in college. The first being, can you talk a little bit about the mathematical component? Yeah. So there's a lot of stat stuff in here. One of the tools I forgot to mention earlier was this idea of dice. Typically, you want to pull a dice, and so those dice are going to be used to kind of execute moves, or really determine how much damage you have or you will dish, or how much damage you take. Right. So there's a lot of numbers related to this in terms of stats that you keep track of, and so the dice are a tool to kind of give you the numbers that you need to use in this game. So there's some real depth to some of this that can happen if you want it to happen.
And dice come out for things like you certain characters have a percentage of being successful at things,
yes.
And so they have to roll based on how likely that is to happen. Dice can tell you how much damage is done based on what's available.
Yeah. So one of the cool ways to think about it is the first time you throw dice in an encounter, say you're attacking someone, that dice is kind of determining whether you hit or not, whether you actually strike the foe, right? So this even gets to the level of, am I hitting the person? And some things, like there are some spells, like magic missiles, for instance, is a cantrip that can't miss. So you don't have to roll the dice for that. But if you're swinging your broadsword, you're going to roll a dice. And depending on how skilled you are with that broadsword, what your stats are like, will determine what number you need to roll to even hit. Now, say you do hit, the next thing you'd want to do is typically roll to see what damage. And so depending on the weapon, there will be different dice or dice combinations that you'll roll to determine how much damage you do. So like a two-handed weapon, you may be using 2 dice, where a small dagger, you use 1 simple dice, right? And so the idea, or even in some scenarios, you can, it's kind of like using focus, so you can focus on your attack so that you can roll 2 dice and pick the highest, right? So the idea is that there are lots of little rules in there that can exist to help improve your odds, but at the end of the day, it's still rolling some dice and hoping for some good luck, right? And so it's kind of cool in that regard, and it's not just, I'm going to do this thing. There's still chance that the thing you wanted to do doesn't happen. And it can lead to some fun experiences, right?
And, with any cultural item, there's artifacts, and one of the most prevalent are the dice, right? Because, they become part of the craft of the game.
Absolutely.
And there's 3-sided, 4-sided, 6-sided, 10-sided, 12-sided, 20-sided, 100-sided.
And actually, that brings me, I brought you all some gifts.
Oh.
So I actually had 2 spare sets of dice just hanging out. And by the way, if you get into D&D, you're going to have an insane amount of dice.
Well, you have to, yeah.
Yeah, so I had actually brought you guys a couple sets of dice. So I'm going to pass this away, or pass this over.
All right. Oh, I got a little black velvet baggie right here in my hand right now. And
Lots
inside,
of velvet baggies.
as I empty it out, as I have a bunch of the dice that Jared was just now describing. Some of these suckers have 6 sides. Some of these suckers, if I'm counting right, have 10 sides, and so on. 8.
Yeah, so we got typical set. You're going to have a D4, a D6, a D8, 10, 12, and potentially 20. Well, you will have a 20 for sure. But yeah, there's all kinds of dice out there. They're even like they're kind of, we call them decimal dice or percentage dice. So there's some unique scenarios where you have to roll a percentage dice to see whether or not something happens. It's real niche.
This particular dice, instead of going 1, 2, 3, it goes 10, 20, 30, 40.
Right. And so, yeah, you'll combine that with even, so say you roll that dice plus a 10-sided dice, you can get the full numbers up to 100, right? Gotcha. And so you can get actual percentages that way. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool dice out there, and Interestingly enough, dice become a big part of this game. People always buying new and showing off. I myself, honestly, probably have around 40 or so sets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and my kids have stole about a third of those. And so I randomly step on a D4 and I'm very angry in the middle of the night, So
The gauntlet's been thrown down. Oh, Dr. Higdon did not bring us goodies. This is great. This is great.
You were telling me, too, about something else you had crafted recently.
Oh, yeah. So this was slightly before the pandemic. We'd been playing at my brother's house on a rickety little table that was kind of crappy. And so I had decided I have enough knowledge and I have the tools and ability. I went ahead and built the whole table for us to play D&D on. And so I custom designed a table. I bought all the resources and put it together. And then we drove it over to my brother's house and we got it all set up. We got to play on it for about 6 weeks, and then COVID hit, and so we unfortunately haven't got to use it as much as I would like, because again, we kind of got a situation where some folks not super comfortable with coronavirus or are in a health situation that it's not great for them to be stuck in a room for many hours together with COVID.
At the time, we weren't going to have vaccines for another year.
No, and that was the other part. Like, at the time, there was really no, we were in lockdown for a bit there, so there was definitely none of that. And so we just haven't quite got back yet. I'm very hopeful that we will start back soon. In fact, I need to nag my brother right after this and remind him that we need to get playing, because my table is sitting at his house. And
can you give us a favorite war story, a favorite story from D&D's, from anything that you've GM'd, anything from you as a player? What was an episode that you've experienced that would really show the listener kind of the spirit that we're talking about here?
Yeah. So,
because they can get pretty fun and ridiculous.
Oh, they can get totally crazy.
Yeah.
So I'd mentioned one earlier about the whole Kenku rogue Hydra Slayer. Led to a whole arc where I was making shirts and little tiny capes for miniatures and such. But as a GM or DM, one of my favorites was actually a random encounter. And so one of the things that you can do is and it depends on how in depth you go with it, but you can roll. So each day a new starts, you can roll to see if there's a random encounter, right? And it just so happened that there was a random encounter, and so I used I don't have it with me, but there's like basically a book that you can get if you want that has just all these kind of random events. And so this was an encounter with an enemy. So they were waking up in the morning after a rest after a long battle, and immediately they get in this situation because of, again, the role there, that they're going to have another encounter. And so in this book, basically there was this layout of, these different enemies or you can choose from, or you can roll for it. So I'm like, I'm kind of enemy. In fact, it was a demon. And so again, doing this all on the fly, I'm like, how am I going to spin this narrative to happen, right? Like, I'm a DM that likes a lot of things being left to chance, and so again, this just what happened. And so I recall having them kind of get ready and saddled up to embark on their travels to the next town. But I kind of mentioned that, you catch a glimmer of something over by this tree. And so one of the players bit on it. He's like, I'm gonna investigate. And so what he does, he digs up this box, and then he pops this box open, and there's a precious stone in there. And as he reached for this stone, it summoned this demon into the world. And so now he's over here with this demon. The rest of them are saddled up, ready to go, and this demon starts, attacking them. And so the players are like, "What do we do? Do we go help him, fight this demon?" And so it ended up leading to this really chaotic, crazy scenario where they're trying to fight this demon, but escape at the same time. And so it turned into this weird almost pursuit scenario where they're trying to fight while trying to still move. And it was quite the entertaining situation that all came about through the random throw of dice and with some basic kind of rules or predetermined scenarios that were laid out there.
That was a blast.
Oh, it was wonderful. Again, but seeing the kind of thing that I needed to do based off the dice and trying to fit it into the narrative and how well it all kind of melded together, that was fantastic. So, and that's a cool thing. It gives a person great opportunity to kind of be free-form in their thoughts. Again, you can have some predetermined. I could have chose to ignore the dice as a DM, right? But I had already decided I want to do this and try this, and I then had to adapt to that situation, and it led to a whole lot of fun. I think one of them ended up being knocked unconscious and being dragged behind the wagon as they were, fleeing, and so one of them decided they were going to kind of try to drag them with the rope back up to the wagon, but still be moving, and it was this wonderful chaos, and we all had a good chuckle about it at the end, and that's what's cool about it, is it gives you freedom and you work within some parameters, but everybody's there for the fun, right?
That was the second thing that really appealed to me. Is I think academically you can find the same arguments as what you've probably experienced intuitively, that creativity is like a muscle, and the more it's practiced, the better you are at implementing it. And as children, we're masters of world building and imagination. And we start to lose that the less and less we practice it. And so, when I was introduced to this in high school, it was just this extension of practicing that creativity and that world building and that communication, fantastically. Did I say that right?
I have no clue.
That works for me.
Anyways, because I think that's really important. Keeping that creativity that you do apply readily when you have it in the real world. It takes a little working out, just like just staying in shape takes running every day or going to the gym.
Jared, did you have a recurring character or a character you were particularly fond of in the times you played?
I was a healer.
Nice.
I can't remember. I think the name was like Aluzus or something like that. I think he had blue hair. I remember that.
That's wonderful.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Did you heal? Were you good at it, or did you kind of stink at it and everybody?
I was okay.
Yeah.
I was always so excited that I would often make mistakes because I wouldn't. I just get so in the moment and intense about things. I think I still do that. But I was telling Dick about this, that if you remember, the Battlefield Mall used to have a Walden's bookstore.
Yes, it did.
And it had a very large D&D dedicated section. And one of my fond childhood memories was attending that regularly, and I remember saving up and buying a Monsters compendium and thinking that was just the coolest thing ever.
Oh yeah, and they change iterations on these things all the time, so they're always trying to get you to buy the next new book. But there's a whole
and I remember
monster
that
manual. There's a lot of really cool tools, and that's one thing I kind of wanted to bring up here, is this game can be a money sink, and I'll be very honest on that, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
These books and stuff I've brought, they're all tools, but they're not necessary.
I imagine a lot of this is online too. Is open source.
And especially whenever COVID hit, D&D put out a whole lot of free stuff. They're like, hey, you're all stuck in your home, Zoom and play D&D together. And literally they just started dumping resources, which was awesome, because again, it gave people something to do whenever they couldn't get out to do stuff. And so I actually grabbed up a whole bunch of this stuff. And so again, the idea is that there are expensive bits to this, but they don't have to be, and don't let that stop you. Again, you can find almost any of this material online. And again, if you get into it, then buy the stuff, and that's kind of how I approached it. Early on, I started in as a player, just bought the player's manual was the only thing I bought, and I didn't have to, but I did. And from there, I don't want to admit, hopefully my wife doesn't listen, but probably got around the neighborhood of $1,000 worth of books, right? But that was my choice because I enjoyed it and I wanted more. I wanted to see the other parts and stuff, right? And as a DM or GM, kind of helpful to know what's out there and what you can bring to the table, right? But again, don't let it stop you. We're talking player sheet, dice, and a GM or DM. And honestly, if you want a GM or DM, just do it. Just do it.
There was a time, just giving you an idea of how disconnected you can be from this and still enjoy yourself. I haven't read a single one of those books, but I played a lot. And I think my junior year especially of college, and a few times since then. And I played with the group about 4 times or so, where I got to create my own character. And I created essentially a golem, essentially a rock monster, not that different from an Ent in spirit.
Right.
His name was Maximin, which was a classic political science Rawlsian term, which means the best possible worst case scenario.
I love it.
Maximin, actual political term. Anyways, so I love that, and I was like, I'm going to either name a D&D character that, or I'm going to name a dog that. So I went D&D. So anyways, this character was kind of slow moving, not unlike an Ent, and kind of dumb. No ability to tell.
Sorry, the Ent were the tree.
The Ent were the walking trees in Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, I just assume everybody listening.
Sure.
So anyways, he has no ability to tell friend from foe. He just kind of has to roll the dice, and he was like, well, I've been with you long enough. You're probably a friend.
Right.
So anyways, by the way, that character does not exist in any Dungeons and Dragons mythology. It's just a character you can create out of. But anyways, there's lots of wiggle room here.
Oh, yeah.
I would just really encourage you, if you're curious about it, just do it once. Just do it one time. It's improv. It's really creative, fantasy-based improv. And if you got a boss at GM who knows what the heck he's doing, you're gonna be solid.
There are some other options that are slightly parallel. So, like, I think it's called Silverlight Games. There's stores like this all over, but I know of one on Glenstone and Sunshine. It's down from that Adobe's cafe, and it's a game store essentially, where there's a lot of board games now that are designed kind of in this fashion, where they're very much like they give you all the parameters and the setup. You don't necessarily need a GM or a DM, but you do get to like play. They're role-playing games where you're a character and you get to be creative and act things out, and that's a little, I think, a quicker way if you don't have a group necessarily.
Oh yeah. And I think I know the story you're talking about, which is metagames.
Metagames, that's what it is.
Great resources, wonderful people in there. They're one of the only stores currently that's dedicated to this stuff. There was one on Campbell there that unfortunately just closed up. I just found that out 2 days ago. I was taking my daughter over to get some D&D miniature figures because she loves to collect them, and we went to go in, and it's like, there's nothing in this store. So, yeah, a sad casualty to the COVID situation there. But yeah, again, just go into one of the stores and check out what they got. I mean, they're wonderful RPG-style games, role-playing games. We are actually gearing up. Our plan in the near future is we're going to start back with D&D, but there's also a Star Wars tabletop RPG that we're going to start playing as well. So I'm going to run D&D, classic D&D games 1 week, and then my buddy's going to run the Star Wars RPG for us. So again, it gives us each opportunity to be both DM and player in different games. So yeah, it's a real cool opportunity. So there's lots of stuff out there. There's lots of these resources, but that creative kind of opportunity to work together in the shared reality of this kind of space and getting freedom to do a lot of things that you can't actually do in the real world, it's really neat. It really is. So.
Well, before we head out, is there any? I've got two things for you. One, I want to, and hold me to this, Andrew. Remind me when I forget. I want to have you suggest someone else to bring on.
Oh, interesting.
Who would you like to see on the podcast? Either just because, man, this is someone you got to talk to, or this someone knows a lot about this interesting thing that I'd like to hear more about.
You got to talk to this psycho.
Right.
You won't believe the stuff this guy's going to say.
So you want to know someone that I've been truly fascinated with here recently that I did not understand how diverse his knowledge is? That's actually your office mate, Patrick Casey. Patrick Casey. Again, I've gotten more opportunity to talk with him in more detail, and he is a very interesting gentleman. Like, he's got a diversity of knowledge in lots of different cool, unique areas. He made his creme brulee for finals week the other day. He was talking about all these finer points of baking and stuff. And I was like, wow, like that's not
an avid trivia competitor too, I believe.
Big trivia guy.
How do people do that? I know like two things decently, and it exhausts me.
Exactly.
Well, that'll be an easy invite for me too.
Right.
Yeah, just turn around.
Yeah, it's just he's the first one that comes to mind in terms of someone that there's more deeper than I would have initially thought. Like, he's got a diversity of knowledge that I didn't expect. And so I think it'd be interesting to kind of hear more from him.
Fantastic. And second, is there anything you just like to brag about the college, about yourself, about your family?
In all honesty, I want to brag about the college and the work they've done to try to keep us going to school in these times, right? To keep us in the classroom as much as possible. I have serious respect for the college and the efforts they've put forth to try to control the coronavirus as much as we possibly can in this scenario. And I have faith that that'll continue. They've really focused on trying to make this a safe environment for everybody, and I'm happy for that. We see in some other areas where they're not getting opportunity to try to protect themselves as much, and like Missouri State and OTC and such have said, no, we're gonna do what's best to keep the students in the classroom, and I truly respect that. So.
A lot today, a great start off to the semester, Andrew. So much about Dungeons and Dragons, your Dick's Uncle Dennis, his hobbies, and just a broader look and consideration of the pandemic. Did you know that?
Sir, I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
And now you know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
All right.